something great for the YBLF by creating an Instagram handle for the YBLF.
It's my effort to get more members.
It's fantastic, and we're really looking forward. Please share the handle when it's ready.
We need
Right.
to just send across the handle to WhatsApp to everyone once this is over, so that more
Yeah.
can join.
Yeah. I was waiting for your approval, so if you want to push the content part
Yeah,
first.
I just want that YBLF write-up.
Sure. I'll send it to you and then we can share.
Posted. Yeah.
Super.
So, with the permission of the president, I think we would start the program. It's 4:06, and we have definitely bright day, cooling down to a warm evening and a very warm and a very, very cold night, which we get here almost at about 13, 14 degrees, or sometimes even lesser during the nights. So, and I'm sure our evening is going to be great with a webinar today on 6 keys to unity in a family business. So it is a very interesting topic, as what we heard from the president, and it is going to give us a lot of learning. And as I committed to the president, we have many more participants joining us. It's time for me to do a quick round of introduction, one-line introduction of all the people on the panel. We, of course, have Mr. Harsh Chopra, who is the main speaker of the day and is also the founder of Partners for Growth. Thank you very much, Mr. Chopra, for joining us this evening. We are delighted to have our own president, Mr. Sanjay Agarwal. Thank you, sir, for joining us today evening. It always motivates us to have you with us. And we're glad to have Ms. Aditi Pasari, who's the chair of our YBLF, the Young Business Leaders Forum of PHDCCI. We have with us the 4 vibrant co-chairs. Let me start with Mr. Salil Gupta. Thank you very much for joining us. We have Mr. Harsh Kataruka, the namesake for today's speaker. So thank you, Harsh, for joining us. We have Ritika ji. Thank you, Ms. Ritika Agarwal, for joining us. And we have Mr. Nakul Multani. Thank you, Nakul ji, for joining us this evening. So, vibrant looking screen with my colleague Vinita Mehra there, who's been working back end on this webinar. And with this, I'd like to request to officially start the program with the presidential address to be given by Mr. Sanjay Agarwal. Over to you, sir.
Well, good evening to everybody. Actually, I wouldn't call it a presidential address. The address that we are going to hear today is from Harsh, one of the, so well-known thinkers and speakers on family businesses in our country. And I think that is what we all really look forward to. I can just say that the importance of family businesses cannot be underestimated. On an average, even across both developed and developing countries, one hears that roughly 70% of the GDP is controlled by family businesses. So practically speaking, yes, one has to understand that family businesses have the best formula for success, because the ownership is very closely knit, and therefore one expects better cohesion in decision making on a long-term basis. And the other part is, of course, that the family business has stronger roots. You hear of many family businesses going across generations, and I think Mr. Harsh Chopra himself speaks on building a strong foundation for family businesses. I believe one of your topics is about businesses across generations, right? So I think it is something that one needs to understand that as long as there is a startup, there is a founder, then till that time it is okay. There is one person who is doing it. or maybe at best 2 or 3 brothers of the same generation. But then as time goes on, as generations participating from the family side in the business, I think that is when the structure of management or how one deals with the complications that happens, that is when I think it becomes really solid or strong.
So we are losing you in the middle.
Am I not audible?
Sir, in between we lose you.
Oh, we're losing in between.
Yes, sir. In the last maybe 1.5 minutes, please.
Oh, last 1 minute. I'm so sorry. I think it's not in any case that to hear me that we have made this gathering. I think we have to hear Mr. Chopra, and I think it will be more useful for us to be asking questions from him after he has done his talk, and to understand a bit more of what he is trying to convey. So over to you, Vivek. Please take the program forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, President. As I said, it's always nice hearing from you. And we did get guidance once again as to how the family businesses fare across the world, across the globe in terms of the GDP growth, etc., GDP contribution. So thank you very much, President, once again. And I'll now like to invite our chair for the YBLF, Ms. Aditi Pasari, for her perspective on this.
Dear friends, good evening to all of you. I take this opportunity to extend a warm welcome, and on behalf of PhD Chamber, I would like to thank you all for being here and our honorable speaker for agreeing to being with us here today. Friends, this initiative of YBLF was conceptualized to address the growing challenges with organizations and the leadership challenges in an increasingly complex environment. It is therefore necessary to develop an understanding and draw new conclusions that would suit the need of young leaders. Coming to today's topic on family business. 6 keys to unity in a family business. What an important and relevant topic. Most of us here, or many of us here from YBLF, are coming from a typical family business environment where we are working with our father, uncle, mother, sister, cousins, and tolerating and taking in stride each other's own temperaments and working styles. With diverse mindsets and working styles, it is imperative that once in a while we may get into arguments or disagreements. Statistics say 90% of the family businesses do not last a third generation. What can we do to avoid this? What can we do to build a legacy which will last a long time? What can we do to ensure that the legacy which we have received from our parents, we are able to pass on to our children? The only way is to stay united. And what are the ways to stay united in a family business is something I'm looking forward to learning from our expert here today, Mr. Harsh Chopra. I also suggest that the queries from the audience can keep coming on the chat box, which we will take up with Mr. Chopra. I would now like to hand over the session to our YBLF co-chair, Mr. Harsh Kataruka, to take the session ahead. Thank you, Harsh.
Thank you, Aditi. It is my pleasure to introduce today's speaker, Mr. Harsh Chopra. Mr. Chopra, through his firm Partners for Growth, advises leading family businesses on next generation induction, succession, family unity, mediation, conflict resolution, and professionalization of the business. He has conducted knowledge sessions for more than 1,000 CEOs in partnership with leading banks across 10 cities. His articles and interviews have been published in Economic Times, Hindustan Times, Mint, Business Standard, and CNBC. Prior to this, he was the MD of Bosch & Lomb India, Luxottica India, and Intellect. He started his career with Hindustan Unilever, where he worked in senior management roles for over 15 years. He's a gold medalist chemical engineer from BHU IIT and lives in Gurgaon. With these words, I yield the mic to Mr. Chopra. Sir.
Thank you, Harsh. Thank you to PhD for inviting me to your August forum, to your platform. What I'd like to do, is to keep it interactive because this program is for you, it's not for me. And to quickly run you through some of my experiences of the last 8 years. And specifically, what are the 6 things you need to do to keep a family together, and not just together, but with superb teamwork. What I'd call a dream team. How can you convert your family across generations into a dream team? So here we go. Give me a second to put this up. All right, is that visible?
Yes, sir.
Right, you see the key right there? Am I audible?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's the topic, 6 keys, unity in a family business. You would have seen newspaper headlines from the wealthiest family in India to the chemist across the road, splitting in the 2nd generation, the 3rd generation, and family feuds really make headlines. And if you really look at it, there aren't many families who don't have disputes, especially when you stretch them across the 2nd and the 3rd generations. One of the families, the Hinduja family, was considered a gold standard in unity. And they have a sprawling business empire, and what family business historians say, they are the gold standard. For 105 years, they stayed together. Except in the last couple of months, there was a case in UK between the daughter of one of the 4 brothers. So if you really look at the landscape around you, you look at company like Ranbaxy, right across Bhai Mohan Singh's time, there have been some conflicts in every generation. And this is not just in India, this is worldwide. So what we would like to brainstorm today is, what can you do about it? And what can you do to have a dream team within the family? So here we go. So Price Waterhouse did a global survey, they do one every year. And they identified 8 or 9 key challenges which the heads of the family businesses themselves said. And 2 of them were succession and conflict between family members. This is a global survey of 500-600 family businesses. Anybody who wants a copy of the report can take it from PwC, or I can send you across. And this makes for some interesting reading because they have singled out some families across the 4th and the 5th and the 6th generations worldwide and try to understand what has kept them going and kept them united. This is a chart made by Professor John Davis of the Harvard Business School. He started the family business program in Harvard for 20 years, and right now he's with Sloan, MIT in the MBA program. So in a nutshell, what he says is there's a saying across more than 20 countries, shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in 3 generations. The first generation starts the business, the second builds it, and the third brings it back to the ground. And this is the overwhelming majority, 90% plus families, that's the curve they follow worldwide. And a lot of the models that he's made ask this question, what do you need to do to regenerate in the 3rd generation? Because, by the time it's a 3rd generation, they are seeped in wealth and they go for humanities and they go for the creative arts and the fine arts. And rarely will you find a 3rd generation family business member, especially in a diversified business family, getting into hardcore engineering. Then you have, these models, the Vijay Mallya model, industrialist, playboy, beggar. But the old shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in 3 generations is a well accepted saying in China, Mexico, US, India. It's translated in many languages. Now, coming back for a moment to John Davis again, he did a study of South Asian business families. And these are the 2 things he summarized in his report. And this is about 10 years back. He says the decline starts in the 3rd generation. And this is the average of averages, I'm telling you. There will be a lot of variations within, of course. And interestingly, he said that, look, when a founder starts, the first 20-25 years, he spends all his time on the business. Once the other family members join in, 50% of his time goes in managing the crossed wires within the family, and only half his time and energy is available in running the business. and allow, wait for, just let that sink in, because the time and energy is fixed. And if half of it is taken away in managing, the crossed wires within the family, do you think the business can make the kind of progress that, that it should? This is a question to the panel, and the second part was already answered, I think, by Ritika in the beginning. But take a shot, please, somebody in the panel. What is the percentage of businesses worldwide who successfully pass the baton to the second generation and then the third generation? Over to you. It's okay, you don't have to be right.
I guess about 30%.
Yeah, who was that?
That's Nakul.
Yeah, you got it bang on.
Mm-hmm.
So, the percentage who successfully pass it to the second generation is less than 30%. And the percentage who pass it successfully to the third generation is less than 10%. In a recent CII webinar, Mr. Sunil Munjal, the respected big daddy of family businesses in North India, and a very respected, a very well-run, institutionalized family from a perspective of family governance. They're really good, really good. They've thought everything through. He quoted a global survey and he said, look, 94% of families worldwide don't make it to the third generation, but the 6% who do, then they go on and on and on, because they've understood what it takes to, to get intergenerational success. ISB did a study and they said, what does it take for family businesses to grow across 4 generations? And they picked up these 5 names, and they are household names in the country, as you know. And the study said, the question the study asked was, what did they do differently to survive, and not just survive, but thrive across 4 generations? And I'll come to the conclusion at the end of my talk. But this is something I'd like you to ponder. So, we come back to the question, what is next generation? Why is next generation induction so difficult? I meet so many second generation, typically return from an Ivy League school or a good B school. And then, he's brimming with radical ideas to transform the business. And his dad is saying, "Arey, ruk jao, bhai, ruk jao. I have built this company. I know how to run it. I've brought it to this size. Now, don't come and try all your tweaking right now. First, settle down, understand." And he's not open to making all these changes that these bright youngsters would like to do. And they are dying to get their hands on the wheel. And that's very common. Because, there's going to be a 10-15 year period when the 2 generations have to work together. Because typically, the founder between the age of 55, 60, the second generation will join in, maybe with a little bit of work experience. And then they have to work together for 10-15 years before the handover. So here is a window of opportunity. This is a chart, which is again created by a guru in Harvard. And this is about, what it says is essentially that there's a limited window to pass on the leadership of the business. If you look at the line below, the successor, in about 10 years time, he's groomed, he is understood. So between 38 and 48 is what the wise people say is the right time to take over the business, the family business. If you cross 48, 50, then he becomes old, he loses energy, his drive, and he'll do a status quo. He's not going to expand to new geographical markets or transform the business. So the founder has to hand over somewhere between 65 and 75. And remember, succession is not a one-day handover of charge. This is a 5 to 15 year journey. And this is the mutual confidence building journey. You give one department, he does a good job, you get the confidence, he's got it right, and you give him a second department and so on. So it's not an overnight thing. It's not a will. Many people confuse succession and will. A will is what happens when you die, who gets your assets and your, the family treasures. Succession is who runs your business, and if there are 3-4 people in the next generation, who does what? And what's the window for succession? It might be a 10-year window handover. So what actually happens is different. If you look at global examples, look at Queen Elizabeth, she's 92. It doesn't look like she's going to give up charge anytime soon. Prince Charles has got white hair, he's already 70, and I'm sure he'll be on a walking stick by the time he actually does get charge. If you look at the Pope, it's the same thing. You've got a person who's holding his head, he's on a wheelchair, but he won't give up. And that's very common. That's very common globally. There are many who plan it, from 60 to 75, but there are many who don't. And it's okay. After all, he's built the business from scratch. It's his. It's the best years of his life he's spent in building this business. So he is the one who decides at what age he'll pass the baton down. One of my IIT batchmates, he'd set up his own company, and I asked him this question a few weeks ago on succession. So he said, look, I'm not going anywhere. I have spent my entire life building this business, but I'll hand over to my son one department after another, but there are two which are my pet departments, and I'm going to keep them. I'm not going anywhere, and I'm going to die with my shoes on because I love this. This is what I've done. This is what I've done all my life. I haven't got any interest in music or painting or arts or travel. My company is my life, and I'm going to run it. But yes, I'm going to groom the next generation, and one by one, I'll pass them on different departments, but I'll still be the head of the company. This is the other interesting example of Mr. Leonardo Del Vecchio. He is the wealthiest man in Italy in the Forbes list of wealthiest men. He's a billionaire. And he was raised in an orphanage in Milan. I worked for this company, so I had the opportunity to spend a day with him in Milan when he took over the Indian business. He bought the Ray-Ban brand from Bausch & Lomb. Now he's a classic success story. Raised in an orphanage, and he rose to be the wealthiest man in the country. He's also called the Dhirubhai Ambani of Italy, by the way. But he's 85 now, and his country, Luxottica, operates in one of the biggest listed companies on the Milan Stock Exchange and the New York Stock Exchange. He operates in more than 100 countries. He's only class 8 pass, by the way. He employs many Harvard MBAs, but he himself is only class 8 pass, and he's a micromanager. But the interesting thing is, when it came to succession, he hasn't got it right. He's got 6 children from 3 marriages, till last count. And he has said that none of my children is going to succeed me. And he last year merged his company with SLR. So he is the world's biggest company in frames. And then he merged with the world's biggest company in SLR to get synergy there. But he is today playing an operating role at the age of 85. In between, he tried succession 3-4 times. It didn't work out. First week, it lasted 2 weeks. The second one lasted, I think, a few months. Then one in between, he got one person who, during my period, and he was there for 5-6 years, Andrea Guerra. And then one day he just sacked him and he said, "Nahi, it's meri company hai, main chalaunga." And he came back. And then, he had a co-CEO, Enrico Cavatorta, who came in, and he lasted 6 weeks. So essentially, he says, my company, I'm going to run it till my last day. He's 85 now, and he's very, very active. And I had a chance to interact with him, at a personal level a few times. But he's a great guy. I mean, he's a classic success story. It's only in the case of succession that he loved his company so much. He loves his company, I should say, so much that he's just unable to give it up. So, we come back to the question. Every family member in business, and this is the crux of what I'm discussing, it's a given that he'll have his own temperament, his own values, his vision, his capability, and his seniority in the family hierarchy. So that's a given. Haath ki sab ungliyan barabar ho hi nahi sakti. So every family member in business cannot make the same contribution to the business. You have to accept that. And I've had plenty of cases. Recently, a Jain family in a mid-sized 100 crore business, 2 brothers. They said, "Bada bhai to 12 ghante kaam karta hai, he's really taking the company forward." And the younger one comes home for birthday parties by 4 o'clock. He has much less interest, but they have the same car, same house, same everything. And then after they got married, the wife, the spouses who came from a different cultural background, The spouse of the elder son said, look, this is not acceptable to me. I don't see my husband. He's out 12 hours a day. By the time he comes in exhausted at 9 o'clock, he's talking to his father for half an hour. And by the time he comes up to my bedroom, he's already dead. His energy is zero. And that's the kind of sacrifice I'm making. And here you have my, his younger brother who comes home for every birthday party at 4 o'clock. It's not fair. They get the same rewards, and we've literally devoted our life to the company. So it should be proportional to the work you're doing. And this is, pretty common. This is pretty common. I've seen it in family across family across family. So the question to you is, everyone is in the same boat, but how aligned are you? Is the level of teamwork, if you were to give it a number, 60%? Is it 70%? Is it 80%? So even if it is 60, it makes sense for you to try and get it up to 80%. And the family business program, which I run for families, that talks about building a dream team. It's not about conflict resolution. We are 2 steps before that. It's like a health checkup. You go for an executive health checkup before there's a problem. Most multinational companies understand, and they put a lot of resources behind team building. They take people out for off-site meets to different countries, and they have these bow and arrow competitions, and they have all kinds of things. But families tend to take this for granted. Oh yes, we are one family, we are all together, grown up together, so we'll work together very well. They don't really, they haven't institutionalized this mechanism of teamwork. So the question comes, how's teamwork in your family? If you look at the 2 extremes, the green box right on the right-hand side, very often when I attend a family council meeting, which is only family members, an example of a green box would be the patriarch, who's the head of the family. He hears everybody out. You've got to, let's say, hire a general manager. So somebody will have, say, he's very good technically. Somebody says, but culturally, he's not a good fit. Somebody says something. So he hears everybody. They have a brainstorm meeting. At the end of the day, at the end of the meeting, he says, all right, I've heard you all. This is the way we'll go. And everybody accepts his decision, even if their original idea was different. So that's an example of, brainstorming. And I distinguish between brainstorming and arguing. Brainstorming is when the interest of the company is above everybody else, and people are relatively humble, straightforward, and they're looking at the future of the company. It doesn't matter who said what. What's good for the company is what decides. On the other extreme, you have the red box. Typically in meetings like this, and I've attended a few, the volume is much higher. People have to shout to make their point across. Sometimes, it sounds like an Arnav Goswami TV show, where a lot of people are screaming and shouting, but nobody's listening. And it's very easy to walk into a family council meeting for 15 minutes, and by the volume, the tone, the way people are reacting to each other, you can know very clearly which way this family is heading. Is it going up or is it going down? So the question is, can the family blend together to be a rainbow? Somebody, they have to have complementary capabilities. Somebody strong in finance, somebody brings networking skills, somebody's bringing marketing skills. So you have different family members bringing different skill sets, and they all blend together to be a rainbow, and they complement each other. It's not that everybody has to be great in technology. That's not possible. It's not even desirable. And it's also, you have to understand that not everybody will make the same contribution at a point of time. Maybe 10 years later, it will change. Somebody else will be making a bigger contribution. But you have to put your own interest below that of the company and be humble and open to learning and working together as a team if you're going to run it as a rainbow. So that brings me to the next question. How does your family build consensus? It is a given you'll all have a different opinion on everything, and that's good. Because then, you'll get the best decision. You'll get, in a democracy, let everybody speak up, you'll have a brainstorm, and then you decide what's good for the company. And so this mechanism by which you build consensus, when a starting point is everybody will have his own opinion in a family business, is what decides how far you're going to go. Think about this. if I were to summarize my entire discussion today, I would just stop at this chart and ask you this question. How does your family build consensus? How do you decide which way to go? So now I'm going to throw a question on the panel. What are the typical triggers of conflicts in 90% of family managed businesses? Over to you. Just take a shot.
Nakul, you wanted to say something on this?
Difference in opinion when it comes to how to run entire industry. Basically, my father would want to run it in the old school way, and I want to do it in a different way, but the end result is the same. But as you said before, that because my dad is the person who set up the industry and set up the entire business his way or the highway, so that is that most of the times.
Okay, anybody else?
I think when your intentions are miscalculated, misjudged, when a specific family takes a decision and that is miscalculated or misjudged by a senior authority, I think that also triggers a lot of conflict.
Misunderstanding. All right. Anybody else wants to take a shot?
I think
You're on mute, by the way, Aditi.
he was trying to say something. Aditi, please speak. You should speak.
Okay,
Please.
thank you, Sanjeev. When the roles are not properly defined and there's overlapping of responsibilities amongst co-workers, people who are working together, family members who are also co-workers. So I feel that tends to lead to a lot of conflicts.
Absolutely right.
Sanjay ji, we'd love to hear your thoughts also. You were saying something.
So I was just saying that, basically, mostly it is a generational conflict because the younger generation always has a different view to running the business or to tackling any issue for that matter. Whereas the founders or the older generation are accustomed to a certain method or a way of running the business and they are comfortable in that. Now, both ways it is not good. I am in my family, I am the eldest, so right, I am comfortable doing things in a certain way. And whenever something else comes about, I feel uncomfortable. Now, that is something that end of the day, you have to find the right balance. That okay, where do you find the balance? And you say, okay, I am uncomfortable, but this younger person who's saying something, that view has to be fully understood, and maybe then we'll have to try and sort it out. By the way, my next one more member of my next generation, my nephew is here with me, but he will also contribute in. You were wanting to say something, Parth.
What I was referring to was, I think, different levels of ambition for where you want to take the company, where you see the company going. Everyone has different, I think, risk appetite and different aggression levels as well. So some people are more comfortable being aggressive, they feel that that's the only way, and some people are more like, okay, let's just do it the slow and steady way. So that, I think, always is a ground of conflict.
Okay, thank you for your inputs, and most of you are dot on because you speak from experience. So here goes. The first one, is communication breakdown. But remember, communication breakdown is a consequence of something else. This is not the root cause. But there are three stages. Stage one is you're brainstorming happily and you will have a different opinion, and then you arrive at you build a consensus and you move on. The second stage is you argue a lot and you're not able to come to consensus because you're not able to build consensus. Everybody sticks to his position. The third and most difficult stage, and you better watch out for this one, is when people stop talking. When the communication breaks down, yes, sir, you're right, Sanjay.
The most dangerous phase. Yeah.
That is the pre-breakup phase. That's the most dangerous thing. So if people stop communicating, there's a red light which should be flashing, and you should take immediate action. So then, there are temperamental incompatibilities. Everybody has a different leadership style and will have. You have conflict of interest. Who will be the next chairman or CEO, between the siblings? Or a conflict of interest. That's very common. Founder does not let go of control as very often. And that's understandable because, founder is micromanages his business. And most founder, I was in Vashi in Bombay and I was talking to a founder and I said, I took a round of his factory and I just asked him over a cup of chai. I said, are you a micromanager, sir? And he said, no, I was a micromanager and today I'm no longer a micromanager. Then I asked the team which reports to him.
It's not, it doesn't really work like that. I will admit to it. Even I'm also a micromanager.
So then I asked the team below him, the HODs who reported to him and to the family. They said, boss, even if a light bulb has to be changed on this floor, unless he says it doesn't get changed. He is a total micromanager. And I gave him this feedback. This was just an example, not literally taken, but his entire team, which had about 20 years of experience, said that, look, he sits in the middle of the shop floor, in the middle of the office, open plan office, and he's available to everybody, and everybody walks up to him for a final decision. So we are just standing by. And we've got 20 years of experience, and we are paid the salary of a general manager, and we are doing the work of a supervisor. And I gave him this feedback. I said, look, sir, you got to change this. You got to distance yourself as the company grows. Otherwise, you will throttle your own company. You will not let it grow. You will control it very well, but you won't let it grow. You will sacrifice growth for the sake of control, which is very common. Then roles and responsibility, as somebody said amongst the panel, if this is not thought through carefully, in the beginning by the founder, they will, you'll be stepping on each other's toes. And this is, a fertile ground for conflict. And there'll be some cases of backseat driving where, the founder has given up charge, moved away, and then he's sitting in the backseat of the car, but he continues to give instructions. And the chap in front who's driving the car says, hey, Dad, you give me, I know where to go. He's saying, no, look, I'm just telling you, if I see a truck coming and I see your car is going to hit a truck, then I just give you a feedback that, hey, boy, watch out, you're going to hit a truck. But he said, look, Dad, you are not doing that. You are literally dragging me to a different destination altogether. Humko jana udhar hai and you are taking me somewhere else. You are not doing intervention once in a while. Yours is a continuous intervention. And how can I drive if you are, driving from the back all the time? So that's a common one. So let me tell you a very brief business story which will illustrate a point as to how this, the 6 keys work. I ran across this family in Bombay, and this gentleman, he worked for 10 years in a company, pooled up his savings, started an auto component business. He had 2 sons, and he built it up into a 200 crore business, a very well-run, profitable business. As one of his sons went out, got an MBA from an Ivy League school, worked overseas, came back, joined Dad's business. Then the second son came. He's an engineer. He also joined the business. They've been in the business for about 5 years. So when he came to me, he said, look, the problem I'm facing is that we have too many arguments. And the argument on the shop floor spills over into the dining table and into my bedroom. And my wife and I are squabbling. And she says, look, ultimately they have to run the company. So why are you arguing with them all the time? So he says, look, the problem is the business has started going down. My health has started going down. It's telling on my health, my wife's health. And this is not sustainable. There is a problem. There is a problem. We got to fix it. We just cannot allow it to go downhill. Then I spoke to the 2 sons separately over a cup of chai. And they said, look, Dad is a micromanager. He doesn't allow us to do anything. It's like a banyan tree. Nothing grows under a banyan tree. So we are at a loss. We are very frustrated. We don't know whether we should be going out and working for 5-10 years and then come back, or take some capital from Dad, borrow something and start our own business. Because how can we work together with him for 10-15 years unless unless he's willing to give us space? And I'd heard the same, he says, Dad, you're impossible to work with. And, coming back to our Leonardo Del Vecchio in Italy, the founder of Luxottica, I used to hear the same comments, in the family there from the HR manager and the others, saying that he is Mr. Leonardo Del Vecchio's God, but he's impossible to work with. He's great. I mean, he is the guy who built this company from scratch, and he's superb. I mean, he's the last word on everything, but he's impossible to work with. And he had a luxury cruise liner in the Mediterranean where he used to go, and none of his kids would like to go with him, or even his senior VPs, saying, look, he's only going to talk shop, yeah, all those 3 days. I'm stuck on the ship with him. There's no way I'm going to go on a cruise with him. And there is just no way. Sorry, made a mistake once, but I can't do it again. So coming back to this story, there was a problem. It was going downhill and it wasn't working out. And the founder said, look, also there's another problem that my younger son, he spends a lot of money on everything. Cars, mobiles, travel. He goes by business class. And my elder son, he's more conservative. He understands the family tradition. He understands the cash flow these days. He always travels economy. And between the spouses, things are not going well and there's going to be a problem. So this was a problem. And this is pretty typical of, family businesses. So this is how we do it. Now listen carefully, because this is how you can apply this model to your family. This is how we run our family business program. So step one, a one-to-one meeting to understand the aspirations, vision, because unless you understand the vision and the aspirations and where do they want to go and how the job and the factory, the company fits into their personal life, things are not going to move. Step two, we do a group diagnosis. Run together as a team, the whole family. What's working, what's not working, let's discuss it. Let's not put a problem under the carpet. Let's put it on a table, put a spotlight on it, discuss it, because there's nothing to hide in this. This is every family's problem, every company's problem. Everybody will have a different opinion. Let's talk it over and let's brainstorm it. And we'll come to a solution. Maybe we agree to disagree, that's fine. So the third step is team building, where, I had worked with this famous professor in Santa Barbara, California, and the focus of his lifetime's work is how do you manage conflict in a corporation. He's written some 20 books. He's Jewish. He's a survivor of the Holocaust, and applying some of his modules here to build a team where the family understands each other's strengths, weaknesses, and leadership style. Oh, this chap he got a finance mind. He's a control person. So I can't just ask him, ye factory yahan laga do. He will want to have all the numbers before he takes a decision. He wants to really do his analysis. And then when he says yes, it means yes. He's a very thorough and detail-oriented guy. So I can't just walk into the office. So you have to tell him in advance, brother, can you please set aside some time? This is a proposal in advance. Set it. This is my proposal. Give him time. Let him chew it over. And he'll give you a very good decision. Don't try to rush him. So you have to understand each other's leadership style, and then, you can work better together. The next is the family charter. The family charter is very important because that's a set of rules to decide who gets what financially, travel, do spouses. It's a set of rules and governance rules for the family. Up till the time it's founder and one son or one daughter, you don't need it. But in the moment the number of family members in business exceed 4, and I'm not talking about a family constitution. The Ambanis and Adanis need a constitution with lawyers because they have cross holdings and all kinds of things. I'm talking about a mid-sized company between 100 and 1,000 crores, where 90% of you would fall. So you need to actually sit down and put together a simple set of rules, whether it's a class of travel, whether it is compensation, whether it's rewards, who will meet the press, will spouses work, do you want relatives as suppliers and vendors or not? Some families do, some don't. What's the kind of growth you are all comfortable with? Are you gunning for a 25% growth or a 5% growth? So you have to agree on a common vision. And then we develop an action plan, a series of 5-6 things. Okay, these are the specific 5-6 things we'll do. And then we move forward. I was attending another CII webinar, and Mr. Ajay Shriram, he said a very interesting thing on a family business webinar. He says 3 brothers, we run this conglomerate. They have textiles and chemicals and various things. He says we go out, the 3 of us with a behavioral scientist, for a 4-day retreat. And we've been doing it for the last 20 years. Why? Because we have to understand each other's irritants, each other's leadership style, what's going right, what's going wrong, and we tweak it as we go along. Because very important that we three at the top are perfectly aligned. So the right word is alignment. How aligned are you? And you can improve your alignment by discussion and by brainstorming. And then at the end of it, very quickly, what are the results? The founder said, look, after the end of our 2-week program, he said, look, I can see light at the end of the tunnel. Another 2 months, I contacted him. He says, growth is back. He says, now we've changed from putting problems under the carpet to we put a spotlight. Communication is improved. Family charter, he said, वो तो हमें यार 5 साल पहले बनाना चाहिए था. It was already too late. Vision alignment has helped him a lot. But he's saying, look, we are not out of the woods yet. We have to continue and monitor our teamwork and the way we work together. Only then we really will be able to come out. It will take us a year or so. Now, what's the biggest barrier to a solution? It's the denial of a problem. कोई problem ही नहीं है. हम लोग तो बहुत united हैं. हमारी तो best family है. ये तो कोई problem ही नहीं है. And one of the family members thinks, generally the founder, there's no problem. And the second generation who doesn't have any control say, oh, big problem. So at the end of my talk, we come to the 6 keys which you've been waiting for. So listen carefully, because this is interesting. You can apply this to your business. And are we doing okay for time? Another 3-4 minutes is fine, Harsh?
Yes, sir, we are good.
Okay. So the first one is the family charter. We discussed that. It's a set of rules. You have to brainstorm. You have to sit together, work it out. And I've helped many families put this together, a simple charter. It's a set of rules of how you're going to work together as a team, the family members alone. Number 2 is the roles and responsibilities. You've got to document these because you'll be getting in each other's way, including authority limits. If you have to hire a manager or a general manager, who's involved, whose authorization required, who should have check signing authority, and what are your independent roles and responsibilities and accountability. Third is align your values and your vision. You know, aligning your values, which people don't understand easily, but this is something you got to think about. You have to align. The starting point is values. You know, large corporations understand the values very well. McKinsey has an annual values day when all employees, spend a whole day discussing values. Vision alignment is important. Very often I came a case that the younger generation, they are gunning for a 20% growth, and the conservative older generation is looking for a 5 to 10% growth. They're saying, bhai, ye bilkul theek chal raha hai, don't disturb the ship. And the impatient second generation is saying, Dad, usko dekho, us family ko dekho, kahan se kahan pahunch gayi hai, usko dekho, kahan se kahan pahunch gayi hai, why are we going so slow? So they start taking decisions keeping in mind a different vision. So one of them, the younger generation, takes decisions based on a 20% growth. The dad is taking decisions based on a 5% growth. So there will naturally be conflict. So unless you talk this over and align it, it's not going to work. Number 4 is exit for family members. Allow family members who don't fit in or who want to do something outside, allow them an exit. Again, I'll give you a very good example here, that of a very respected industrialist, Mr. Munjal, Sunil Kant Munjal, at the same CII webinar I referred to you. He said, look, we have about 20 family members in our business, in our core business, which is now 40,000 crores. We have another 100 family members who are outside the business. So somebody is running a university, somebody is making chocolates, somebody is doing something, finance company. We encourage people to follow their passion. We don't try to fit everybody into the business beyond the 4th generation or the 3rd generation. It's not possible. It's not desirable. And they have perfected their governance structure. It's a very respected family, and it's, the reason they've done so well with so many family members is that their family governance structure is very solid. Succession planning we discussed. That's a long subject, but I'll take half a minute only on this. And this is something, it's the responsibility of the founder, not the second generation. The second generation is not going to say, Dad, when are you handing me over charge? Aap jaldi karo. This dad has to decide, and he has to groom the second generation. He has to do it step by step by step. after understanding their aspirations and his own aspirations. And communication, we discussed that. So that brings me to the end. I think I've overshot by 5 minutes. This is a summary of, we'll take Q&As after this. This is a summary of what we just discussed, the 6 keys: align your values and vision, roles and responsibilities, family charter, exit for family members who don't fit or who want out, succession planning, communication. In communication, you have to actually set up a formal family council meeting as a platform to communicate, and also discuss best practices of other business families. What are others doing? What are they doing? What can you learn from them? So we come to the Q&A and back to the panel now. And let me just unshare this, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chopra, for the enlightening talk. Before we start the Q&A session, I would like Mr. Agarwal to share some views on the talk that Mr. Chopra just gave.
I think each and every point that Mr. Chopra has made is very relevant. It resonates. Being part of a family business, I think it would resonate with the younger generation listening to it, those who are the second or third generation in the business. And I think they always, I think they do make a lot of sense. And, one can't lose sight of one for the other. I think this 1 hour session is not going to be enough. So we are probably going to be needing much more of guidance by Mr. Chopra on all this. I think the sort of inputs that we have heard today, and I think now that having made the background, I think it will be very, very interesting now to the youngsters ask their questions, because people like us, in any case, we claim to have all the answers. So let the questions come from the youngsters, right? And maybe then all people of my generation also start to learn a bit more as to what we are expected to do also, right?
Sir, it's always a privilege to hear your views guided by your experience. I would like to invite Ms. Ritika, co-chair of IBLF, to ask the first question to Mr. Chopra.
So thank you, Mr. Chopra, for an insightful session, first of all. So when you said a family blessed like a rainbow, what are the top 2 factors you think be decisive of which color to be given to whom? Like a rainbow has to be a unit of colors, and what are the top 2 factors according to you that should decide which color to be given to whom?
Okay. Good question, Ritika. See, everybody has a core competence in something. So you have to go with a natural fit. And arising out of, their proven areas of core competence, their capability, there'll be some people, who's a natural networker. He goes out, shakes hands, meets people, and he's the right person to, be in sales and to be networking and, represent the company in outside forums. And there'll be other who are by nature, let's say a core engineer who works 12 hours a day in the factory and he's loving it. So he's the right person to be the project, head of projects and managing the manufacturing. Because if you don't get this fit right and a complementary rainbow, it'll be a big, big problem. And, at times you should use an outside professional, a trusted family accountant or somebody, because it is very difficult to take a judgment on your own children's capability. Very difficult, very difficult. You try to pass a judgment on your son or your dad, or chacha ji, aap dusra bahar kaam dhoond lijiye, aap fit nahi ho rahe idhar. You can't do that. It's not going to work.
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you.
Now I'd like to ask Mr. Salil Gupta, also a co-chair of IBLF, to pose the second question to Mr. Chopra.
It was a pleasure listening to you, sir. I have a very small question. Since you've already mentioned the numbers of successful handing over, say, the second and the third generation, right? So, since what advice do you have for a handful fourth generation which is here attending today?
Firstly, I'd like to offer you Padma Shri,
Yeah.
because fourth, I very rarely, when I used to give talks on behalf of ICICI Bank to family business owners across many cities, and I'd ask people, please raise your hand, anybody in this room of 50, 80 people, how many are third generation more? Virtually zero. Virtually zero. It's all first and second. Rarely, in one case, I met a fourth generation, and then after the talk, I shook his hand. I said, "You're a great guy." He said, "You know what? We're about to split."
Right, sir. So now Nakul Multani, he's also co-chair of YBLF. He also has a question for you, sir.
Hi, sir. Just a quick question. Like 6 years into the business, would you recommend learn all the entire business or stick to where we are?
Okay, that's a good question. It depends on your business. It depends on the capability of the thing. But I would recommend rotation strongly, because for anybody to, if you look at the management training program of say Hindustan Lever, where I worked as a trainee many years back, you are rotated through 10 departments before you take charge. First 2 years, you have to really on the shop floor, dirty your hands and go through department by department to understand how it ticks. And later, before you become head of a profit center, you have to understand sales and manufacturing and HR, etc., finance, IT. So it's a great idea, depending on the size, to rotate people across functions. It's a great learning. It'll expose them, and ultimately they may not, stick around very long, but a short period, 2 years, 3 years, I think is a great idea.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now we have the chairman of YBLF, Aditi Pasari, wanted to ask you a question.
Yeah, Mr. Harsh. So I'll just discuss my family example with you. So we are a multi-product, multi-location company. So it is handled by me and my sister. We both are working on the forefront. Of course, father still on top. So we have divided departments and not products or plants, like they're manufacturing. So that's why I say plants. So we have not, between me and my sister, we have taken a division, which came very naturally to us, like the way a natural fit. My sister was more operationally inclined, so she went towards the operations, and I was more commercially inclined, so I went towards the sales and finance. So is this a better way of managing a multi-product, multi-location company, or we should actually divide plants and products?
And that's your call. Both are fine. There's really no hard and fast rule there. You can, depending on the size, and you have to identify which is your core business. So everybody gets exposed to that. And there's no really hard and fast rule in that, whether you want to do it division wise or function wise and so on. It's just like you run a large transnational corporation. No difference. This is an operational question you have. Good, very good question. But no views really. It's your call completely. No problem.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir, and thank you, Aditi.
Harsh, my nephew would also like to ask a question. Yeah,
please, sir.
Parth, sir.
Parth, this part of the world.
Hi, Parth.
Mr. Chopra,
come closer, Parth. We can't see you.
Good afternoon. One general concern which I see even with my friends is that when in a family business, when the generation change happens, there are a lot of employees who have been there for 20, 30 years in that company, and they're always loyal to the older generation. How does that transformation work, according to you? Because that is generally a huge,
this is their biggest complaint. The seniors would come and say something in my ear.
See, this is a dot-on question. You hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
Because there's an old guard which surrounds the founder all the time. And when the second generation comes, they are not so comfortable with the old guard.
Yeah.
And what typically happens is they tell the dad, hey, dad, these guys, some of them have outlived their utility. They were great during the first 10, 15 years. Right now, they're not really required, but they're very senior and they have to be treated with a lot of respect. And they'll find that, people of their own age, they can push them around and, work, have a frequency, they work well with them. But the old dad's generation people who have seen them growing up in shorts and chaddis don't really accept them as a boss or as a leader so quickly. So that is a very difficult transition. That is a very difficult transition. And, the same question is in the mind of the professionals. Will the younger generation remember our contribution? Will they accept our thing? Will they, when they come, will they change? And, even at a political level, somebody who's a secretary to, say, a prime minister, and the son of the prime minister takes over, the same person will not be the secretary. So they'll change. So if you look in a family business, that's a very, very tricky transition, and you have to handle it with great care because you can't annoy them. You can't, because they have really made a contribution and taken the company forward. And at the end, what typically happens is a few are retained by the second generation and a few are not. Those who have the potential to adapt to the new situation continue, but they have to build bridges. But the concern is not just on your side, but on their side as much as yours, if not more. I remember, a famous case study in Harvard, I think it was. There was a very big family in Hong Kong, and, the girl, she went to Harvard, came back, and when the business was handled, first thing she told dad is that, hey, dad, get rid of these chaps because they have totally outlived their utility, and today they're not required in the new setup and the new organization structure which I've created. And dad said, you cannot touch them. They have actually brought the company to where it is. You have not seen the contribution they made. Mujhko pata hai. So don't touch them. And that continued, for 4 or 5 years until she had her way, because then, she was running the company eventually anyway. So this transition is painful, and it's a very, very valid question, which you have to take on a case-by-case basis.
Thank you, Mr. Chopra, for that answer. And with that, I will pass the con back to Vivekji for the formal Q&A session by the from the attendees.
Harshi, one more thing. I hope it's Mr. Harsh. I hope it's okay if I took a lot of screenshots of your slides. I hope it's okay if I circulate some of the formal business groups.
See, knowledge shared is knowledge gained. There's nothing confidential. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you.
Vivekji.
Yeah. So I'd like to thank both the namesakes, I would say, I think, for conducting a beautiful session and some really good warming up and interesting questions coming in from each of the co-chairs. And of course, the president actually adding the silver lining, by highlighting and asking the... so wonderful session. And I think I have 2 quick questions for Mr. Chopra, which have been pre-sent to us. And I think a little more light on that may not harm the session. The first question goes as how to continue the third generation business and make it more innovative. And I think that could also be extended to how should they go beyond the 4th generation, since we have the people with the platinum records here.
Yeah. So, innovation is not really linked to a family business. Innovation is across the board, whether it's a transnational, a multinational, you are Hindustan Lever, you are, a Google, or you're in the technology sector. So innovation is something that is very important in certain sectors like technology, less important in steel and mines and more traditional sectors. But I don't think it has a specific bearing on whether you're a family or whether you're this thing. So to spur innovation, you have a culture. You need to build a culture of innovation, and that you have to do irrespective of whether you are. And there are ways. We run a program on how to build a high performance culture, an innovative culture where all ideas can flow top down, bottom up, and it's not that all wisdom is at the top and percolates down. But it's the other way around. You build a culture where everybody is free to ask questions. Everybody is, free, to this thing. And if you actually build, and the founder has to do this because he sets the tone. The founder of a family-run business decides the culture. He and the company is one for many years. So whatever is his value system is actually translates into the values of the. If he is a very strict top-down command and control type of person, तो ज़्यादा innovation नहीं होगा. His message is do what you're told and move on. जो काम दिया गया है वो करो. Whereas if it's not a top-down command and control type, and he's a trust and delegate type, which every founder has to move in the second leg of his journey, then the innovation will pick up.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you for that. And I quickly go down to the next question. Again, one of those pre-sent to us. There's steps to move from a promoter-run organization to a professional promoter-run organization, and how to handle the challenges of this transition.
Yeah, that's a book in itself. Because how to professionalize a family business, if I were to put it simply, how to move from a Lala culture to a totally professional culture is it's a subject in itself. I can't really, in a minute do that. You can write a textbook. I used to run a program on how to professionalize a family business, where you have to move from a one-man taking decisions to a process decision. Because once the company grows multi-locational and beyond a certain size, the same leadership style which brought success in the first 10 years of the journey when you were setting it up does not work in the second leg. The first leg of the journey, it's a one-man show, and it's good, it's required. But once you have professionals, multi-locational, you have to shift to processes. You cannot take individual decisions and discretionary decisions every time. So some founders are able to make that personal changeover and change their own leadership style, and some cannot. So the ones who cannot, they stifle the company. And the ones who can make the change, they grow the company. They let go. They let go of controls, pass it all over the place. As long as you adhere to these guidelines, go. Do what you want. So that's my short answer.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
I'd like to ask you one thing. There was this talked of experiment, I wouldn't like to name the family, but I think in any case most people would know, which decided to make the whole business totally professional and exited the management. And then after some years, we saw them coming back, taking the reins. What do you say about that?
Yeah, that happens. You'll have people letting go of completely professionalizing it, moving. But one thing you will find, if you remember that slide I showed of ISB study on those 5 families, which are diversified, large, Murugappa, Dabar, and all those, Kirloskar, there's one thing that is common to all those 5. That the top, set of function heads are total professionals. From the best institutes, the head of marketing, if you take a company like Harsh Mariwala's Marico, going to 20,000 crores in one generation. None of his 2 children are in business. And he's running it from a board-controlled company. And he's saying, look, the company will grow better and make more money if my kids stay out of business. They learn much more as shareholders, so they need to understand governance. They come on the board, but I don't want to put them in because they don't make the cut. So and the others who do make the cut. So sorry.
What you feel is that it's basically the management, and ownership. Even if they are kept separate, the ownership can keep control, overall control, but not the day-to-day control, because day-to-day control should be more in line with the management abilities of the family. Is that what you...
Absolutely right. You have to differentiate between ownership and management. If they are capable, sure, put them in. This whole discussion is above a certain size, above 500-600 crores, 1,000 crores, not smaller than that. Then you need all hands on board for small businesses. You can't go out and hire, full-time CEOs for a small business. But once you grow beyond, like Dabar, look at what they did. They hired the best professionals, the CEO, the head of supply chain, the head of procurement, the head of marketing. They came from companies like Hindustan Lever, Pepsi, Procter & Gamble, and they were best-in-class people. And they paid them accordingly, and they really took the company places. The same thing with Marico. If you talk to the HR head and all, you're a thorough professional, total.
I think that makes a lot of sense. But you have to be a certain size, of course.
Yeah, that's above a certain size, correct.
Vivek.
Okay. Mr. Chopra, though there's a question with the name of a company in the chat box, so without taking the name of the company, I mean, they are talking about how can a situation like that be avoided. If you can look up the chat box.
I can't see it from here. Could you just summarize in one sentence?
So they're talking about a big group here, a question in the chat box,
Okay.
and are referring to the crisis which happened there.
Okay, 1 second.
The Q&A section, sir.
In the Q&A, yeah.
In the chat box, right? If you can just read it out, there's a lot of text here. I can't,
So it just says what can be done so that the issue like, okay, if I have to name it, the Raymond's family business issues don't come up as it is very hurting.
Oh, yeah, sure. So, that is a case where the founder chose to hand over complete control, because very often what family owners do, they hand over the management, but they retain the control, the legal control. Then it's a win-win. The children are free to run it as they want, but at the legal control stays with the founder. That's the simple solution. But in a family business, ultimately it's about trust. There will be cases where there's no trust or a complete breakdown of trust across generations, across siblings. So you have to build trust in the family. You have to build trust in the family. And nothing like a wise founder who puts the interest of the company above all other. And he keeps in mind, all the stakeholders. He just doesn't take a decision for himself. You don't need a Donald Trump type of person to run the company, who's shooting from the hip all the time. You need a very seasoned, mature, all these successful companies, whether you take the Hero Honda Group, you take Godrej, you take Tata's, superb institutionalization of management. They get the best talent and there's nobody from the family. Even the Aditya Vikram Birla brood, other than Kumar Mangalam Birla, there's nobody else of the family running the entire business. Only, it's only one person in the family and the rest is all professionals. So it varies. Whatever you want to do, whatever the size you are and so on.
Okay. So I think that takes us to the end of the question and answers around. Archie?
There are two other questions, if I may just, it was in the chat box.
Yeah.
So the first question is trying to set up rules for different family members, be it on spending or travel or work time or other things, may hint towards a call on separation. How should one go about handling that perception?
It's the opposite. It's not heading towards separation. It's working together. You see, you can't play a game of cricket without rules. You don't know where the 4 boundary is. You don't know where the 6 boundary is. To play any game between a set of people, you need rules. So if the family sits together, agrees, okay, we'll all do economy travel. Otherwise, we'll have one member going business, one going first, one going economy, and the spouses will say, hey, where is that? Just not workable. Somebody's driving a BMW 7, somebody's driving a Maruti, it'll be total chaos. So
Right.
The rules are needed to actually keep the family together, not to drive them apart.
Okay. And the last question that we have is, how do you begin involving the role of an external consultant to assist in the process of formalizing such things, given that most of the time the senior first generation may not feel the need for it?
That is always the case. The second generation is the one which sees the need, and the older generation who has the control and the power, they say, kya zarurat hai? What do you want to do this for? Theek to chal raha hai sab kuch.
So some tips and tricks to convince, or at least, convince the older generation to see the need for it.
Yeah, don't use the word tricks, yeah.
No, I meant strategy.
Well, the only way is that, look, be upfront and tell him, look, Dad, there is a problem. You don't see it, we see it, the second generation. There is an issue. It's a major concern area for us. And you've got to get his time. Dad, can I sit with you for 10 minutes uninterrupted, please? Yes. Take the time, sit and tell him, Dad, there is a problem. Why don't you let's have a chat. And then why don't we just call in any outside professional just for a third opinion? And then if you don't like it, fine, you have the control anyway. So if you get his time, get those 10 minutes and get this one message across, because this is very common. Whenever a second generation comes to me, nothing moves, because the first generation is, no, chahiye, zarurat hi nahi, and everything is fine. But the problem, the second generation says, hey, boss, it's a big problem. It's a big problem. I'm thinking of quitting this business. And dad is saying, no problem.
Right, sir. Vivekji, back to you.
Okay. Thank you, Harji, for taking on those two questions also into the chat box coming in at the last minute. And I think we've had a great session, as I said. And I just highlight the 6 pointers in Mr. Chopra's session. I think align your values and vision, roles and responsibilities, family charter, exit for family members who want out, who want to move out or don't fit in, succession planning, and communication. You know, back at management school, when I read the chapter on communication, and I found it the most silly chapter in my entire book, only to discover later in life that that was the most important chapter when you practice things in life, whether it is communicating with colleagues, peers, bosses, family members, or anyone. And I think your last point in that 6-pointer slide, or 6 keys, and I saw the golden key there, I think does it all. And I'm sure that all of us will gain a lot of it. And we can't thank you enough for this session. So therefore, I'll request Mr. Nakul Multani, our co-chair for the YBLF, to give a formal vote of thanks. Over to Nakul ji.
Thank you, Vivekji. A very good evening to all of you. Harsh, Partners for Growth. Mr. Sanjay Agarwal, President, PhD, CCCI. Ms. Aditi Pasari, Chair, PhD, CCCI. Ms. Ritika Agarwal, Co-Chair, YBLF. Mr. Salil Gupta, YBLF. Ms. Taruka, Co-Chair, YBLF. Mr. Vivek Saigal, Principal Director, PhD, CCCI. My friends and colleagues from the industry. Dear friends, on behalf of YBLF and the PhD Chamber, it's indeed a privilege to extend a formal vote of thanks. I would like to thank our eminent speaker, Mr. Harsh Chopra, for taking out time to address the gathering and sharing his knowledge with us. It was indeed an enlightening and learning session for all of us present here today. I'm sure that the knowledge we gain from the session will definitely help us all in the future. I take this opportunity to thank everyone present here today, and we thank our event sponsor, Raftex Essentials, and our media partner, Vex.in, for supporting the event. I also thank the Secretariat of the PhD Chamber to put this together. With these words, I close my concluding remarks and close the session. Thank you all once again.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And let me thank Vinita, who's been working back end on this day and night to make this webinar successful. Thank you, Vinita. And thanks all the esteemed guests, as well as all the participants. And have a nice evening ahead.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Sanjay, for giving us the first generation perspective. You're all the second generation here.
Actually, I am second generation. You know, that's the easier part. Let me tell you, it's the third generation which is the tougher part. So.
That's true.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Thank you for joining in.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.